things like WordPress as a web platform. I think for a lot of authors, that's almost a given now.
Yes, so many authors use that. They
Yeah.
use WordPress, and I think for SEO reasons, and particularly the non-fiction authors. Though we still have a lot of people who will get a site, done by their local designer or whatever, or use one of the platforms that are not as robust. And I think, as you say, some of these nominations are people you just couldn't leave off. It's a bit like the tools this morning, KDP, Google Play, Kobo, the Ingram Spark, all of these, they have to be there. They just do an amazing job. They're not going to open anybody's eyes to see Goodreads on a marketing and promotion for authors, but at the same time, all those billions of readers, you have to acknowledge that it is a fantastic tool.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I've not done it since my first book, but the communities on Goodreads are actually very useful. Goodreads, historically, people were using for giveaways and for other kind of interaction, but actually the communities themselves, which are similar to Facebook groups, can be very good, depending on your genre. It's like with anything with marketing. Like what might work for one, a marketing, say a children's book, is very different from a book about aviation parts or something like that. So there isn't necessarily one ring to rule them all on the book marketing front.
No, there definitely isn't. And it's interesting what you say about Goodreads. A lot has changed there, and the giveaway setup isn't half as good as it used to be. So people are not doing that so much. And we hear a lot of people, they don't feel good about Goodreads because the readers on Goodreads are real readers, and they're very opinionated and very engaged with the books. And that can mean tough reviews sometimes. And that can be, indie authors can feel a bit, so I mean, I know some authors who avoid it completely, but I think it's like any tool. It is about finding your place within it. It's a huge arena. It would be great to see it updated a bit. It's definitely very dated and needs some work. It's ignored. It's not really, it's part of the Amazon stable, but it doesn't get a huge amount of attention.
I would recommend all authors, because I had a bad experience with my last book in that I forgot to go onto Goodreads and set it up, and somebody else, because it lets people like readers just set up books on the system if there's not existing, and somebody else set it up linking it to a author in Oklahoma as the Tim Lewis, the author.
Oh no.
And it took quite a while to get, because I was down as Timothy Michael Lewis, which is my kind of fiction pen name. It took quite a while, and even then I haven't really got it properly sorted. It goes to my Timothy Michael Lewis profile on Goodreads. So I would suggest that, at the very least, go and claim your books as soon as you have them out, because especially if you've got a common name, it's such ask, because people will review your book on Goodreads whether you like it or not. And if you don't do it, if you don't go on there and set it up, somebody else will. So that's one of my
great tip. Tip. Good. What I'm interested in when it comes to the marketing and promotion tools is how many have sprung up in the last short while that are really valuable and innovative and technology based. So as a lot of people who are watching will know, the Alliance of Independent Authors has a watchdog desk, and we get applications from services who want to be partner members of the Alliance. And for a long time, we were finding it very difficult to find partner members in the marketing and promotion and publicity sphere. And the old way of marketing and promotion was through, the mass media, really, the chat shows and all that kind of thing. And I think authors still have that dream, of sitting with their chat show host of preference and talking about their books, but that isn't how books are marketed now, and it was never all that effective, because you had you know, the entertaining interview went out to everybody, whether they were a reader or not, whether they were interested in your genre or not. Marketing and promotion now is all about being super focused on your genre, your niche, your micro niche. You know, the smaller you can get it, the better. And a lot of these tools are thinking about it in that way, and very much about segmenting the audience and you finding your ideal readers. And so, yeah, I'm very heartened by some of the great tools that have come along in the last while. And it was quite difficult choosing, you know, which ones we were going to put in here. Pubvendo is one that you mentioned already. That was really really good.
I mean, two that I would call out are Dave Chesson's, I think is it Kindle Rocket or KDP Rocket?
I think it's called Publisher Rocket now.
Oh, Publisher Rocket.
Publisher Rocket, yeah.
And that is an Amazon keyword search term app.
Yeah.
And that's,
I think it began there. It began for Kindle, and I think the reason Dave's now calling it Publisher Rocket is because it's more general, you know, categories and keywords.
Well, I mean,
that's my understanding. I couldn't.
Yeah, as you can see, it's one of those tools I keep meaning to invest in and never get around to doing. And also, I'd call out K-Lytics reports from Alex Newton. I know he's speaking, or he's probably spoken at this point. What he does is he produces reports about what categories in the Kindle ebook store are competitive, or which ones are you don't need many sales. And you'd be surprised. I mean, it can make a big difference to a book, especially if you're in some obscure category. So the cat detective category or whatever, I don't think there is one on Amazon, but they say there was. You could chart in that category, and then that could get you enough sales to chart in another category that's a bit bigger. And that's how a lot of people use the Amazon store to get ahead. So those kind of marketing tools are actually very useful because Amazon is a bit of a sales engine in many ways. A lot of the best books sell because people see them on Amazon. And how and why do people see them on Amazon? Well, it's search, or it's categories, or it's also bought sometimes. So having tools that let you kind of use the Amazon or the other suppliers like Apple, Google, etc., are going to be great tools for marketing support, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Two great tools there. And Dave is actually not talking about keywords and categories today, though he has a lot of really good and interesting stuff about that on his website if anybody is interested, and everybody should be interested, because it is key, pardon the pun, to success as an indie, to get a really clear idea of your categories and your keywords. But what he's going to be talking about today is mailing email. Sorry, brain is dissolving completely. Email managers, essentially. He's doing a comparison of the most popular ones for authors, so MailChimp, MailerLite, and so on. And one of our nominations here, a good few users nominated ConvertKit, and that's the one that we use ourselves at ALLi. It's really useful, really good if you've got it. It's expensive, more expensive than the others, particularly at the early stages, but it's really good for segmentation. If you've got lots of different audiences, it's one that I use it personally and can highly recommend.
Yeah, I mean, one issue you'll find with online comparisons of these sort of things, so mailing list providers, social media schedulers, even website builders, is the trouble is most people only use one. And people, I mean, I've tried over the years. I've used Aweber, used MailChimp, and I'm on MailerLite at the moment. But actually, ConvertKit is one I was thinking about moving to, because it's got a lot of integrations with other systems that MailerLite hasn't got, and MailChimp has a fantastic integration with everything. But MailChimp have kind of changed the way they charge, which
yeah, they really annoy the community, MailChimp. People got very fed up. It's interesting because if they had come in at that level, it probably would have been fine. But changing when it was set up was not a good PR move for them. And certainly a lot of people moved on from MailChimp because of that. I think MailerLite wins Dave's analysis, and he's gone quite deeply into, as he does, he's gone quite deeply into 4 different providers, not ConvertKit actually. He feels that for most people, ConvertKit's just that little bit over specking, that you don't need to go to that level unless you've got a lot of segmentation and stuff that you need to do. But email marketing is still by far the most effective way of building direct connection with your readers, building a core fan base, having readers. We were talking this morning about beta books and having an ARC team that will go out and talk about your book in advance for you. All of that becomes possible with email. And so, every author should have an email list. And so I think Dave's session is a must-see for everybody, really. I'd also like to give a shout out to Gleam app, which is a competitions app, and we use it. I'd like to give them a shout out because we use it for the conference. So any of you who are entering any of our giveaways, that is supported by the Gleam software, which is fantastic, makes it really easy to set up a giveaway or a competition. So a number of our speakers and sponsors have provided great discounts and nice prizes. We've got an Amazon Echo that we're giving away, and also lots of coaching. These speakers who have built these tools are very often do consultancy and coaching and stuff, and we've got some free sessions with them and lots of different things. Discounts on courses in particular. So Gleam is great to set. We set it all up in a very, very short time. It really is a time saver if you're going to do something like contests and giveaways, which, if you are thinking about that, make sure you catch the session by Melissa Storm. I think it was our second session this morning, where she talks all about using giveaways and competitions to build your reader numbers. What else have we got?
Well, what you were saying reminded me of jumping right down to the miscellaneous kind of time organization section. There's quite a few tools like Asana. I think Trello might be recommended somewhere.
Yes, Trello's there too.
And also Airtable, I think it's another one that somebody recommended. One thing I was going to say when you were saying all this, because the great problem, and I remember being like the new excited author years ago, thinking, all these things, you have to have some sort of throttling of your youthful ambition in the business world, because you can't be doing everything. Well, actually you can be if you've got infinite amount of funds to pay lots of VAs, but even if you can pay a virtual assistant or you've got staff, you still need to train them into getting the thing. So probably best to get used to an organization and thing to say, maybe I do want to run a competition for my book, but I'm too busy setting up a mailing list now, or I'm too busy doing this, and we'll put that as something to do 2021. So all of any kind of organizational system you can have makes sense. And one of the things that I don't practice as much as I should, I practice a little bit, is checklists, and that's what I use Trello for. It's got card-based things of tasks that you move around from done to the rest of it, but you can include a checklist. And so for regular tasks, I always used to hate people when I worked in IT who had all these checklists they ticked off of everything they did for him. But apart from the remembering what you have to do item, the great advantage is that if you have to outsource that particular task, you can just provide your checklist with instructions to somebody else to do it, because otherwise you are ultimately always limited to your own time. And if you kind of have to remember how to do everything all the time, I know it does, again, it's an investment, but I think organisation is something that a lot of authors struggle with, and I know I do. I've been getting better in lockdown. I'm still not there. It's very frustrating in a way to spend like 5 times as long writing down the process you do, and then think, well, you're not getting any return. But you do get return the next couple of times because you can just go through quickly, and it's like, oh yeah, that's easy. I don't have to kind of think, well, what do I have to do now?
Yeah.
And
what did I do last time? Yeah.
Yeah, and it also gives you a way to innovate and think like, well, what can I do to this process to make it quicker? Is there a tool I can insert in there so that I don't? So as I was saying to you with Phrase Express, which I use for some of the answers for the Twitter chat. So I'll have written the answer beforehand, and then I'll just go like asterisk A1, which I've set up as answer 1, and it would paste the whole text in there.
I can't tell you how relieved I was to learn that, because I really had you down as Twitter Superman. I was like, how does he write those tweets so fast?
Well, yeah.
So I'm glad.
That's the thing. Like, if you see people doing amazing stuff online, and a lot of the people you will see are like online entrepreneurs, or even some of the biggest authors, you discover they've got automation, or they've got staff, they've got things behind it. It's rarely that they are some brilliant superhuman. You are just not seeing the. They could be totally on drugs all the time and like working 24 hours a day, but it's more likely they've got proper systems in place, and they've got people, and they've got technological tools to help them. So. That's just something to consider. I've gone off the tangent a bit there.
No, I think it's you're making a really important point. It's actually a little bit what my own session is about. The final session of the conference is I'm talking about planning for authors, and I think, it's we need to plan, but we need to not. Mine is kind of the anti-planner planning, because I think a lot of authors, if you get to, you have an IT background, and some of our authors are incredibly good on the analytical stuff and the data and all of that, but a lot of authors find it hard to approach it in that way. So I think there are various ways you can kind of go at this that don't make you feel like you're too constrained, and the tools are really the key. And as you say, documenting your process, I suppose, first of all, doing something often enough to understand what your process even is, that can take a long time. Nothing in this game is overnight. So you've time to nominate one more, and what would be your final one from this section?
Well, given that they sent me a mug the other day.
Oh, yes.
I might as well talk about TubeBuddy.
Yes.
It's a little bit, it's a little bit of a specialist tool, but I think you were saying somebody else nominated. I think I nominated it as well. So at least 2 of us.
I think we had a few, because a number of authors are YouTubing now, particularly our non-fiction authors, but also poets. So building up a YouTube channel, which again takes time and effort. So tell us, what does TubeBuddy do? Should I get it?
Well, I actually had if you wanted to watch my live show about 2 weeks ago, I interviewed a guy from TubeBuddy, hence all my free stuff. But it's a Chrome plugin, so Chrome as in the browser, and you can add it in. And just from an obvious point of view, if you've ever tried to use the YouTube channel manager, it is terrible. The UI is just awful. It's all over the place. So one of the nice things that TubeBuddy does is it starts off with like links to all of the nice things that you can find in the creator thing.
Oh, I'm going over there straight away.
In that in itself is useful, but it's also got loads of little tools, some of which are paid for and some of which are free. But amongst the free one is, we're coming back to the whole search thing. It's got a keyword search thing, where it used to say, I could type in Orna Ross and it would say, well, that's a good search term, it's very competitive. Or, well, actually, it's a good search term because it's not competitive, but a lot of videos have got that title. Or it gives you like a rating in a similar way to something like Publisher Rocket, or even the Google search word term. And there's a whole load of other tools in there to do, which I can't remember off the top. It's a collection of tools basically for YouTube. But yeah, even on the free plan, it's useful just because it's a different UI to YouTube's one that's a lot easier to use. And I know a lot of the very big, well, in fact, I think most of the big YouTube creators use TubeBuddy. It's almost endemic. So it's certainly something to consider.
That's great. And YouTube itself, of course, is a tool which it isn't in our list, but we certainly would recommend it if you're that way inclined. And I know, again, this is just a tip kind of thing, that a lot of authors have put off the idea of doing video. You know, they like words and pages because they don't want to do what we're doing here. And that's completely understandable. But what a lot of authors don't know is that a huge, and I mean absolutely ginormous percentage of YouTube users actually don't look at it. They just put on the sound. Now, I don't quite get this, but I know a number of authors who stopped doing the actual video bit and just put up their audio now with, you know, either some nice pictures or no pictures at all. And it made almost no difference to their follower numbers, their subscriber growth, and so on. So YouTube is owned by Google, and they are now, you know, they didn't before, index the videos in the same way that they did text, but that's going now. So soon video will be indexed just as much as text. So it's, for discoverability, it's a very good tool, and you know, worth thinking about.
There are like millions more people who optimize for Google searches than for YouTube searches, and yet I think YouTube's like about half the size of Google in terms of searches, so it's massive. And the other thing is that YouTube, I mean, I watch YouTube on my television. I've got a YouTube app on my television, and I know a lot of people are watching YouTube on their televisions. So it's almost like your own, and it's almost like your own way onto somebody's TV. Is like, I think you can actually self-publish videos to Amazon Prime, but I've never found anybody who's done it yet.
Interesting. So, didn't know that. Okay.
It's one of my things occasionally to find people to talk about self-publishing films. I think it's getting there, but I don't think it's quite mainstream yet. But maybe in a few years' time. So that was TubeBuddy.
TubeBuddy, okay.
I think it's TubeBuddy.com. I think if you type TubeBuddy.com/StoneandPress, it's my affiliate link if you ever feel like buying it. But,
here you are. Grab the moment, Tim.
Just go to TubeBuddy.com and download the plugin, and it's a really good app.
Great. Okay, one last one that I would like to mention, because it's the only tool you were laughing at as a category to itself, which is the rights. So the reason rights is in there as a category is because licensing your rights is a stage that you come to as a publisher, not until you have published well and, you know, done well. But once you are doing well, you will be approached by rights buyers, and you will get interested in the idea of licensing some of your rights. And there is currently only one tool that is helpful there in terms of organizing your titles in a way that rights buyers want to receive the information. And also it's a marketplace for rights buyers and sellers. Far more sellers on the platform than buyers. Certainly you don't just put your books up there and suddenly get lots of rights buyers coming to ask you, but it's a place to go if you're interested in that. So that tool is PubMatch. And it's at pubmatch.com or at pubmatch on Twitter. So if you are thinking of going in that direction, just in terms of organizing yourself, it's worth thinking about. And I will give a shout out also to Asana. You mentioned organizational tools, because this whole conference was organized on Asana, and it's really great for managing teams and giving people different tasks and seeing, you know, we had 24 sessions with all coming in at different times from people, loads and loads of emails, and, you know, 3 or 4 members of the team doing different things. So you really would be in a home for the bewildered without Asana. It really is a fantastic tool. So yes, folks, really it's up to you now to have a scroll down through our 50 marketing, promotion, business organization and rights licensing tools, and see which ones you like and which ones you'd like to give a shout out to on Twitter. If we've missed out on something, pop that in the comments. We'd love to hear about tools that we've missed out, or tell us about it on Twitter. We are live tweeting the conference all through the night. At Indie Author ALLi is our handle, and hashtag SelfPubCon to get all the tweets about the sessions and to talk to the speakers, the sponsors, ask a question or anything else that you need. So yes, thank you for joining us for the second part of our top 100 tools. Hope you found something useful there. And thank you, Tim, for all your work on this. You're going to do something about the conference on the Indie Author Chat on Wednesday on Twitter?
Yes.
Do you want to tell folks about that?
It's the I'm going to do one on lessons from SelfPubCon. And the Indie Author Chat is on Wednesdays at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. UK time, and of course 9 p.m. European time. And unfortunately, I think it's something like 5, 6 in the morning Sydney time, but it's like.
But you can't run 24-hour Indie Author Chat for 24 hours.
Yeah.
So.
And for anybody who doesn't know what Twitter chat is, basically you go onto Twitter and during that hour period, you're looking for hashtag Indie Author Chat. So there's a tool actually in the list called TweetDeck, which is very good for taking part and running Twitter chats. It's just very good in general. It's a desktop only tool that Twitter actually took over a few years ago. It used to be called something else deck, but they became TweetDeck, and that lets you look at a hashtag. So if you actually add in hashtag Indie Author Chat on Wednesday, or beforehand if you want to see promotional tweets for it. Occasionally other people tweet on there and I have to tell them off or just ignore it depending on the time frame. But yes, that's what the Twitter chat involves. So
fantastic. And thank you for all your work on Twitter for self-publishers of all hue and for authors of all kinds and for us, for the Alliance of Independent Authors. It's great. We'll be back at the end of the conference just to close out and say hopefully that everything went well to the end. Yeah. Until then, happy scrolling, happy reading. Hope you're finding lots of useful information. And yeah, do hop onto Twitter and have a chat. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.